Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Behind Black Business, sponsored by Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. And as you know, we're a nonprofit organization that is working to help circulate dollars in our community. And we have another very special guest for you tonight, Dr. Larry Muhammad, who has started a school in our community, something that we so much need and need other people to do as well. The Genius Education and Innovation Center, located at 619 East 67th Street. And this is a very special school, and Dr. Larry Muhammad is a very special guest. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come and talk to us tonight, Dr. Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to make a few announcements here. Um, as you know, we have in supporting our Black businesses, we are great proponents of our Black bookstores. And every month we give a book away. And so last week we had a pre recording, and so we did not announce the winner for January. But our winner of our book giveaway is Eleanor Chapman. Eleanor, you have won a copy of Rhythmic Zone. Okay, this is a wonderful graphic novel by Turtell Only. He's created so many different types of comic books and illustrations. Um, and this is a wonderful book, and you are going to receive a copy of this. So I want to thank you, Eleanor, for subscribing. We do this to support our Black bookstores. We used to have 22 Black bookstores in our community, and we were down to a few, and now there is a resurgence of Black bookstores. There's definitely an interest in reading in our communities, and we have to support our bookstores. If we don't support our businesses, we can't circulate that dollar in our community. So when you support a Black business, you have to understand that even though you might have to pay a little more money, somehow that dollar will find its way back to supporting the community. A community that thrives is a place where you live and you play and you spend your money. And so that's the difference that you see when you come into our communities. But Dr. Muhammad is part of a community that understands that. And so they are on the move. And we have so much negativity out here um, in terms of conversation about what's going on in our community, but there are so many good things that are going on, and there are so many people that are out here making some wonderful things happen, and that's what we have to focus on. We can't focus on the negative, and that's why we have this podcast to bring the people to you. We started in 2020 with our organization, and we have had over 90 podcasts now that are all archived on our website. We have a directory that is coming very soon where we will be listing the Black businesses here in Chicago, and we want you to support our businesses. Also, for the month of February, we feature a Black bookstore every month. And so the bookstore of the month is The Book Joint. Okay, we lost Dr. Larry. Hopefully he will come right back. But it's The Book Joint, and they're located at 330 East 51st Street in Chicago. Um, and she has selected a book of the month, Scenes from My Life, Michael K. Williams. Now, as you may or may not know, Michael K. Williams, who passed away at the age of 54 in 2021, was an actor. And he played Omar Williams on the drama series The Wire. And this is a wonderful book about his life. And so if you subscribe to our podcast, you will win a copy of this book. All right. And this will be our book for February. So Dr. Larry Muhammad, are you back?
I am. Was that me?
Okay, wonderful.
Was that my
Wonderful.
connection or it just
I
went?
have no idea what happened, but you're here. Okay, his screen has frozen. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Let me see. Okay, Dr. Larry. All right, let's see. Give Dr. Larry an opportunity to come back.
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry. Hopefully
Okay.
that's not me.
Okay. All right. So anyway, also we support a couple of more announcements here. The Southside Community Federal Credit Union, located at Garfield and Wentworth. They're a Black-owned institution, and we support the Southside Community Federal Credit Union. And they are a banking institution, and in order for a banking institution to thrive, we have to make deposits. We have to put our deposits there. That's how they create dollars. And back to the bookstores, we want you to go to Save Black Bookstores in Chicago at change.org and sign the petition, because we want to get contracts for our Black bookstores with our local libraries and our local schools. Our children need to be reading our books, and there is no reason why the Chicago Public Schools and our local libraries cannot purchase books from our Black bookstores. If they just purchase 10% of their books at the Chicago Public Schools, all of our bookstores would be just fine. None of those 22 Black bookstores that closed would have closed. So that's part of our public policy division that we're working on. And so we're asking you to support us by signing that petition. So those are our announcements for tonight. And so now we can get on with the interview with our guest. Dr. Muhammad, what you are doing is so important. We need schools in our communities, and we need schools that are going to address our needs, what we need to be working on, what our young people and even our adults need to be learning. And just from having the conversations that I've had with you, the Genius Education Innovation Center, located at 619 East 67th Street, is offering. This is something that you're offering.
Right.
And so I want to start out and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and talk about how you were inspired to do what you're doing as far as starting this school.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you again for having me. Hopefully my connection will stay strong. If it goes out again, I'll join by phone. So my education journey started out like a lot of young people, where I didn't really have too many positive experiences early on in school. You know how we go through that experience where we're bored and we're not challenged. And apparently a good percentage of us have had that experience, because now today you constantly hear from people in all walks of life how school is, they kind of sort of present education as though it's not relevant anymore, and schools, and do we need schools? Do we need college? So that opens up a whole nother issue to discuss. But
Mhm.
my journey started out where I kind of struggled early on in school, and I didn't really find much that interested me,
Okay.
But as I went through school, um, and I think because school is often so different from home and outside of school,
Mhm.
um, but as I went on through school, when I got to high school, I started kind of looking for what I would be doing, in the world after I got out of school. So I kind of started to go on a search, and I got a little bit more aware of my own identity as a Black person. So I started studying, the Black consciousness movement, and religion, and um, the civil rights movement, and the Black nationalist movement, and um, the the Black Muslim movement, and all of these things. And then I also started to look at different careers, and I got interested in aviation and flying. And my father had a friend who had um, an airplane, a guy he worked with, and he took us up one night at night in a small plane, and he flew in. And this is, I grew up down by St. Louis, so he was flying like over the Mississippi River, and he flew into this small airport off the river, where he tapped the microphone 3 times, and the lights on the runway came on.
Mm.
And it just blew my mind, because you
Mhm.
don't think about
Mhm.
those things. Most of us don't have those types of experiences. And so that kind of opened up my interest in aviation, which I started studying in high school, took some aviation classes, and I actually eventually ended up going on to college in aviation to be a pilot. And so, that journey continued, but also my journey in studying continued, and that's where I started studying, um, a lot of different books, reading, of course, Message to the Black Man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, reading Haki Madhubuddhi's books, Jawanza Kunjufu, and other writers, and Sheikh Anta Diop, and a lot of different, I just started exploring a whole new world of learning. And so I actually ended up, even though I still love aviation to this day, I ended up changing my major um, to finance, with the plan of getting an MBA, and because business and entrepreneurship was an interest. But I ended up, because of this pursuit and learning and pursuit of knowledge, I ended up in education. Uh, and so that just went, and I just continued on that track in education.
Now
So
let me ask you here, as you're talking about the works that you read, and
mhm,
especially the historical information and the perspectives of many of our great writers.
mhm.
So many people want to not talk about that. They want to look at it as something in the past or whatever. But how did this help you? How did this inspire you, um, as a person? To
Yeah, I think a lot about that, because I think we're going through a transformation where we're trying to figure out. It may sound strange, but it seems like we're trying to figure out who we are,
Mhm.
as a people, and it's a little disturbing, you know, in one sense, because um, I think we know that we've suffered a miseducation campaign, but it
Yeah.
seems like that miseducation has been um, taken to a different level, and so when we read those books, those books were based on, they were, well, first of all, they were based on the writings of scholars and people who had done extensive research, um, well written, well researched, based on actual facts and history.
Mhm.
it was during a time period where people, as you mentioned about the bookstore, people read more, people wrote more, so people were more literate. You know, it's strange because I know we're going to talk about technology a little later, but it's interesting how with the advent of technology, we've actually become, you know, if I can use the word, we've actually become dumber. You know, we've dumbed down.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we read less, we write less. There's even school districts that are not even teaching writing anymore.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so there's been an effort, and it's not just been against Black people. And see, this is where Black people, we start to see everything as this war between Black and white, and there is such a thing, but there's also a war, a bigger war between truth and falsehood.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not the only ones that have been, you know, as Malcolm said, hoodwinked and bamboozled. And
Absolutely.
I don't even hear anybody use that word. The only person I've heard even use those words that Malcolm used, ironically, is a white man who I read his um, journals and his writings, and he uses that word today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the entire world is under this, you know, like this melee's, you know, where well, you know, everybody knows there's just been a dumbing down effort. So the
Sure.
readings and the period that we went through where we were um, reading and discovering all of this knowledge and information, you know, it just enlightened us, and it caused me to want to read and learn more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what inspired me to go into education. I had no interest in schools, no interest in even reading, you know,
Okay.
until I read these books and I could actually see um, this connection, not only with myself but also with the spiritual side, because in the world that we're in, the schools that we go to, you know, there's an absence of the spiritual.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
there's an absence um, of truth and the you know what people have had to offer throughout civilization. You know, and it turns into just something that just bores
Sure.
students. You know, I've even seen in my education career, you know, I've seen this with all students that just don't have that connection. And I can relate because I didn't have that connection until
Mm-hmm.
I found a connection through these writers and through these speakers. And in high school, I was listening to um, and memorizing, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches. You know, when I, at the age of 18, 19, when I first heard Minister Farrakhan, then, you know, I made that connection. And so these are things that reconnected us
Sure.
to not only our own, but it also reconnected us to the spiritual and reconnected us to um, a civilization that was more learned and cultured.
And I think it helps to ground you more. And
Hmm.
as you move forward and you go through your journey in life, you have more of a purpose, you
Right,
know, and a vision as terms of why you're doing what you're doing, you
right,
know, and it's based more on truth and morals and mankind and
right,
not just the money, you
right,
know.
right.
We're like the fish in the ocean where they drop, the bait down there, and you go for it. And our bait is money.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I just wanted you to, have expounded on that because that's really important because I hear too many people saying, what they don't want to hear and what we don't need to know, and we just need to move forward. But you
yeah,
can't go forward if you don't know where you've come from. And we continue to say that, but I think it has to be said more and more so that it becomes internalized.
yeah.
So
And who gave us the idea that studying Black history, studying Black civilization, Black scholarship, Black culture, um, that doesn't take away from any other culture. In studying that, it actually, again, it reconnects us to civilization, period. So then we
Mm-hmm.
begin to study other people.
Sure.
We begin to appreciate and understand other cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and we become, more well-rounded, so that when we become educated, um, we can have, and I think it's clear now, we look at our community, um, is money the solution?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly it's not. Clearly money is not the solution, because a lot of money flows and a lot of money has been spent, but we still have the same problems. So clearly there's more of a um, education problem,
Mm-hmm.
and the proper education, an education that gives civilization, and it just gives, that could take us down a whole nother whole
Okay.
nother path. But yeah, it's a balance. I think that's a good point you bring up. But yeah,
Sure.
we have to appreciate that culture and that history, and allow it to evolve our culture and our civilization.
Absolutely. And so, with that, how did you come to create an educational institution?
Well, I've always, because I didn't really see the value in learning and in schools growing
Mm-hmm.
up. Um, I was one of the children of the 80s where, after the affirmative action era of the 70s, and you had integration, we were those children who started going into the suburbs and going into different areas. And that was a different experience for us. Um, it was a different experience. And so, schooling was strange to me, my experience. Others may have had different experience, but I always wanted to pursue school that keeps you grounded and connected, and that's also rooted in realistic expectations and outlook. For example, when you go through school and through high school, you have the school, and then maybe depending on the district you in, you might have some specialty schools, like they used to call them vocational schools or technical
Sure.
schools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that all schools should be hands-on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what we're dealing with now, where you hear people, everybody's talking about, well, I didn't learn this in school. I didn't learn about money. I didn't learn about this or that. And I had to teach myself, or I had to go and get more training. And a lot of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
So schools have to be hands on. And we hear this debate all the time. School is just memorization, or, um, you're going and you're going through these chapters in a book, and you're taking this
Mm-hmm.
test, and that's it. So in order for us to be a productive society, and to create young people who are productive and who can compete on a global scale, they can't start doing that in college, you know. And then if you talk to people and you survey it, even through college is not hands on enough. I just heard a presentation the other day, a businessman who, successful businessman, and he said going through business school, he didn't learn how to do business, you know. And so school and learning has to be hands on, which is why I've always admired the field of technology,
Mm-hmm.
because it was hands on, and you can meet people in technology who never went to college. They actually taught and trained themselves, so it's very hands on. So so the desire to create schools that provide a real world experience, where, for example, let's say you spend half the day learning and half the day doing, you know. So there's the learning part, and then there's the doing part. Well, we don't have enough doing.
Right.
So if you're looking for coders to code and build apps and websites and all of these functions of the modern world, most of those coders are in India and China because there wasn't enough doing in American schools.
So are you saying that in the educational systems in these other countries uh, do have a doing part to their education?
You have doing part, and then you also have a different culture. Going back to that discussion about learning about our culture and our civilization, it's a different culture, different civilization. So in India, educators will tell you they have to put people out. They don't have enough room in the libraries.
Hmm.
Where in America, the library is the quietest place in town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's you can guarantee any library in America you can walk into is going to be quiet and is going to be probably empty.
Wow.
On college campuses, you can find the library full because it becomes a place where you have concentrated learning and they have to prepare for tests. They have to do things where they're kind of required. So obviously on college campuses, you'll find more people in the library. But in general, you know, libraries, they're not the most popular place in America. But also, you have more work. I heard Jim Rogers, who's a famous investor, American investor. He said when he first started going to China in the '70s, he said these people get up in the morning, everybody, and they're working.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so and even though they have a lot of cities today because they've modernized, most people still live in the countryside. But back then, majority of the people lived in the countryside, but everybody was working. So even if they're going to school, they go to school, they get their school in, and they're out of there, and they're working. Everybody is doing something. Everybody is active and
Mm-hmm.
hands on. I even learned recently where TikTok, which is a Chinese invention, a Chinese company, where they have restrictions on how the children in China use TikTok. The children in China don't have access to TikTok like the children in America.
Okay.
Their access to TikTok is restricted, even though they created TikTok. Okay.
Well, they got rid of a lot of libraries in our public schools. I can say that right here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Where we
Yeah.
had libraries and they replaced them with computer time
Hmm.
and playing a lot of games on the computer and not necessarily reading. And in the homes, uh, I would say people used to have somewhat of a library in their homes because people used to buy encyclopedias,
Right.
and everybody had a set of encyclopedias in the house.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So there's
so,
much less reading,
hmm
very, very little reading.
hmm
I mean, very little. There's
so,
very little writing, and the switch. You're right. The switch from libraries to media centers and
hmm
schools didn't create media centers where children were learning technology and how to code and how to build these things. They were learning how to use those things, which is a difference. In China and India, they've been learning how to build those things and design them.
mm,
And in America and other places, they've been learning how to use them. So, so you're talking about, I think I just saw the data. You're talking about 1 billion hours on Facebook alone a day collectively, you
okay.
know, something like that. So yeah, it's a different world we live in now. And so, um, my view of education and what education needs to be today is drastically different from what it used to be, and it has to change like immediately, or the United States is going to be in some major trouble. You know,
So with your school, your current plans, what are your current plans as far as connecting education with technology?
the current plan, and I've been meeting with a couple of people in the tech field, recently, because the current plan is to start to expose young people after school.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to open it up and make it available for those children, because you have a lot of parents who are homeschooling, you have a lot of parents who are looking for alternatives to the public school. So we're going to make it available where students can come in and get involved during the day. But the first step is to make it available after school, where students can become hands-on with technology, whether it's coding, which is a big part of what we're doing. So we have a coding platform along with the Genius Education and Innovation Center. We have the SoMeta Coding Academy, which SoMeta stands for School of the Metaverse. Which is another division of this, schoolofthemetaverse.com. And so the idea is that they start to learn how to code, because code is the language of the modern world.
Okay.
Everything that we use, we're online right now. These websites, everything is built with code. Um, Cars program with code. You see the Tesla cars driving around. It's basically running on code. These cars are basically programmed. And Tesla, they actually update the software and update the code and send it to the cars. And so the future is based on code. Your appliances, your alarm systems, your cameras, everything is driven by code, which connects to robotics, connects to the AI, the artificial intelligence, um, the virtual reality, or which we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Even our energy system, even though it's still the old energy infrastructure, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's it's slowly being shifted over to being controlled by, obviously, by our computer systems, which is why you hear about the fear of being attacked through cyber attacks, because these computers, um, which are ran by software and hardware, which is built on code.
Okay, now when you mention code, I'm trying to understand this concept. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I think about a code, code tells you how to get into something.
Okay.
That's how I'm looking at it. And so everything already has an informational system or a code or something to make something else happen, or to build something, or to make something function.
Right. Exactly.
Am I am I
Exactly.
am I getting the right understanding here?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. So basically, um, websites, and this is something that I have always been interested in, but it wasn't my field. Just as an educator, I was around these things. I attended the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana for my bachelor's and
Mhm.
master's, which was the home of the beginning of the internet browser, which they call Mosaic. Became the internet browser. Became Netscape, was the first one developed there. So all of these things are built on code. So it's a different languages, and it looks like a bunch of letters and numbers when you see it. Um, but it's computer code, it's computer programming, what they call software and computer programming. You're coding and programming the software to do a specific task,
Mhm.
or you're programming the software to convert a page from red to yellow, or you're programming and coding it to open up a video and allow a video to be streamed from one computer to another. All of that is driven by code. um, the software whether it's software or hardware, and for the most part, we use software because we use apps. Those apps have to be built by code.
Okay.
So the code leads to for example, the programming of um, the algorithms that manage these functions. So if you request Uber, this whole platform was
Mm-hmm.
built on code,
Sure.
and algorithms are programmed to operate. So they're programmed to do certain functions and respond, in a certain way to accomplish these tasks. And so artificial intelligence, which we're hearing a lot about now, is where the computers have been coded, and the algorithms have become so advanced they can start to do things that humans used to do.
Okay. I
Because
know the person that handles our website was
Mhm.
telling me about, he mentioned AI, and I'm like, well, what is that? And he said it's artificial intelligence, and we were looking for a picture. And he
Mhm.
was telling me how he could go in and create, a picture, a backdrop uh, with artificial intelligence.
Right, right. Yeah, my the flyer that I have for to promote the center, we were actually doing some experimenting and playing around with Chat GPT, which is a lot of people are talking about now is the new AI system where you can type in things and it can give you back what you asked for.
Hmm.
So that's how advanced. If you remember back in the days of Microsoft DOS, where we had to type in a program, hit enter, and then it brought up a bunch of words,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
type in something else, and it brings up a bunch of words. Well, it's advanced. It's so advanced now that we don't see the coding. It's behind the scenes. Um, but the coding and the software is just programmed to pull information and think on its own. So the artificial intelligence, that flyer that I did, there's a picture on the flyer that I went into Chat GPT and I told the computer what I wanted, and it produced that picture.
Okay.
The artificial intelligence produced that picture on that
Mhm.
flyer. So I gave it, I typed in and gave it some commands, and so it's able to pull the information from the internet and produce what I asked for.
So it sounds like coding is very important, fundamental information, almost like that you would need. Is this something that you would be teaching at the school? You'll be teaching coding?
Yeah, actually, my plan is to make coding really the second most important language after English,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because Tim Cook of Apple said that the reason why Apple is in China is not because of, like, they used to say, well, they go over to China for cheap labor. That doesn't exist in China anymore.
Hmm.
There are other places where they go to get cheap labor. The labor in China is more advanced now. So he said the reason why they're in China is because China has over 1 million coders.
Wow.
So they have the ability to build anything. You know,
Anything. Anything.
they're because the coding is programming the robotics instruments and tools. So that's why the robotics is a big part of what we do and what the students will do, because we want to introduce them to robotics. Robotics is already taking over manufacturing, and it's going to be the future. You already have robotic lawnmowers that operate on their own. Again, the
Mhm.
Tesla car is basically a robot.
Okay.
It's basically an AI robot. You know, it can be automated. It can, and you see people, they can put it on autopilot. You
Hmm.
know, so down the road in the very near future, You can be at home, sleep, and you could have your car out driving Uber and Lyft and picking people up, and generating revenue. That's actually the goal that Tesla's trying to get to. So driverless cars is a big thing that's going to be coming into our world real soon, and it's already been piloted. Driverless trucks, they already have driverless trucks. So, and this is really important because this is where education has to change. So one of the biggest job in America right now, middle class job, where young men and women can not have to go to college and they can go and create this job and make a good living, is the trucking field. They can
Mm-hmm.
get a CDL and they can
Sure.
drive a truck. 10
Mm-hmm.
years down the road, you're going to start seeing trucks without drivers.
Hmm.
So what are they going to do then? It's going to be a different world that we live in, and everybody, they get emotional about it and start complaining and saying, well, it's going to take the jobs. Well, yeah, it is. It's going to take the jobs, but it's going to create different types of jobs. So yeah, so this is the purpose of having an education center, a learning center that's focused on introducing these skills where students can start to explore and learn. And then by the time they finish high school, they can go to college and further their education and training, but they already have skill sets where they can start to immediately, even before leaving high school, they can start to apply these skills and create jobs for themselves or create businesses and be equipped for the modern times.
So at what age can you start teaching coding to an
Yeah,
individual?
that's a good question. Like the coding platform that we use, which is also available online, so people don't have to necessarily even come to the center, because it's online. They can do it from anywhere. But generally, around 7 or 8, they can start to play around with this. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, Elon Musk, who everybody talks about as being this genius who created the Tesla car and SpaceX and the Boring Company and all of these things, and into AI and robot. Well, what did he do when he started out? I mean, in his own words, he just sat up all night coding. 12 or 13 years old, he was just on the computer coding. And so he could create things that the world needed to use. And so the first thing that he created, major thing that actually made him a billionaire originally, was he and a group of about 4 other young people. They created PayPal,
Yeah.
and the first online payment system. And then they sold PayPal and then took that money and went into other things. So yeah, so that's what.
So STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, is very important.
Mhm,
Um, you also mentioned learning about finances.
mhm.
So you got this STEM information and the robotics and the artificial intelligence, hands-on, the coding, um, and then you mentioned finances.
Yeah, so the finances, and I mentioned, in my own journey in education, um, I started in finance first. Finance was always an interest of mine. And so, since in recent years, after my tenure where I was the director of Muhammad University of Islam here in Chicago, um, when I left there in 2014, 2015, I started really studying not just finance, but the future of finance,
Mhm.
which is what people have heard of in blockchain and also known as cryptocurrencies. So this is where technology meets money.
Okay.
our what's known as our technology meets value. So when the internet was created, the internet gave us the ability to start to transfer information around the world at the push of a button. So the internet brought us the ability to, that's why I remember they used to call it the information superhighway.
Mm-hmm.
So the internet opened up the information superhighway. So what is blockchain? The blockchain is the evolution of the internet. So now that highway has opened up to where you can move everything, including value. So it's not just money, but it's also anything of value. So when they created Bitcoin in 2009, this was just a result of years of the study of cryptography, which dates back to literally the 60s and 70s when they first started experimenting with this. And so in the 90s, technology started to advance with the internet. So they started getting closer to the ability to use cryptography to move money and value. So just like you send an email and you send information, today you already have the ability, because of the blockchain and cryptos, you already have the ability to send money through email, just like you sent information.
Mm-hmm.
So when we hear, and this is another thing that we'll do at the center, not just for children, but for all of us and all ages, we'll start doing workshops and seminars to give people kind of an idea of how fast this technology is changing, because they started off calling it cryptocurrencies only because the digital assets or the digital money that they're dealing with and talking about is protected by cryptography. So that's why they call it cryptocurrency. So
Now,
Bitcoin.
what is cryptography?
Cryptography is for a long time it was just known by internet, what they call internet geeks or cypherpunks, or people who played with this cryptography. So basically, email was developed as an early step in cryptography. So they were able to encrypt your information so that you can send that information from one person to another between you
Mm-hmm.
and that person. So now that encryption can be done with money, where I can send you money between you and I and nobody else knows, including the bank.
Hmm.
So I can send you Bitcoin, and that's just between us, from my wallet to my digital wallet to your digital wallet. Nobody needs to know about that transaction. You can only see it on the blockchain because everything can be seen on the blockchain, but you can only see numbers. You can't see who's sending it, although you know there is the government. We know, they have ways of using their own technology, which is usually
Mm-hmm.
more advanced, to track these things. So, and there are a couple of cryptocurrencies that are more private than the others, but generally blockchains are public ledgers. So the other word for blockchain is distributed ledger technology. So this is basically where the internet has what is equivalent to like an Excel spreadsheet, that only those who hold the key to that ledger can access it.
So this is the wave of the future, because as you were talking at some point earlier, we'll be going into a cashless society. There are already
Exactly.
stores with lanes that won't take cash.
Right. Because we now have the technology to make everything digital. And
Hmm.
so COVID ushered in, um, where they started to experiment more with this, where you go into some stores. There are some Starbucks you can go into, and well, we don't take cash. Now, the excuse given is because it's dirty. Money is dirty. It passes on bacteria and viruses. That's what we heard during COVID. That was one of the excuses.
Mm-hmm.
In places like Chicago, you'll hear, well, it's dangerous. We got robbed the other day, so now we don't have cash. This is all a cover up to what's been happening over the past 10 years, which is the transition from money becoming cashless to physical cash to digital cash. Okay. And not only will it be money, but it'll also be everything of value. So your car, your house, um, everything of value will be digitized or what they call tokenized.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear people talk about NFTs, and this is something that we'll do, we were doing it out at BBF on the west side and the STEM program there, where we were showing the students and teaching them about NFTs. And you hear that now. Some places are starting to present this and teach about NFTs.
Now, what are NFTs?
Well, you hear people talking about the NFTs in the metaverse because part of digital assets and crypto and blockchain is NFTs, which are non fungible tokens. And so the first use case were people taking art like pictures,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you've heard these far out stories of people taking, like pictures of different types of monkeys, and people just make all different types of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what they're doing is they're creating this and they turn it into a token. They turn it into a crypto token.
So they put a
Basically,
they put a value
they put a
to it.
value on it.
Put
They
a
put a
value to
value
it.
on it. They
Mm-hmm.
convert it to like they say, like, you take this picture, that my daughter did,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this picture, and they'll take this picture and they'll create a digital version of the picture.
Okay.
But along with the digital version, there will be a key which makes that picture unique. So every digital token or crypto token has a key. And that's how you maintain ownership of your digital assets by a private key.
And
So
doesn't that help it maintain its value as well? Because it seems like the way things have moved, uh, mass production seems to decrease the value.
right, yeah, yeah. See, the idea of non fungible tokens. A lot of people are making mockery of this, and they're saying, we're not going to deal with that stuff. Just taking pictures. See, the pictures is just the first use case. This is all experimental.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is in the future, your house is going to be an NFT.
Okay.
Your house is going to be converted to a non fungible token,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be able to sell that token to someone. As a matter of fact, you could have a building that will be a non fungible token, and you'll be able to sell fractions of that building, just like you can sell fractions of stock today. You can sell fractions of cryptos and Bitcoin. You don't have to buy the whole token. Like some tokens are a penny or less. Some tokens are a couple dollars. Bitcoin is worth 20 some $1,000s. Well, you don't have to buy the whole thing. You can buy fractions of it. Okay. So, but when it's digital, you have that ability. It can be broken up into fractions. And so the non-fungible tokens are digital tokens with the private key, and it's secured. You can't, you really have to, you'd have to be able to hack in and steal that key in order to take ownership of that item. And that's another piece of this whole
Mm-hmm.
puzzle
Mm-hmm.
is cybersecurity and identity theft, and all of that have been a major problem in the world of the internet. And now blockchain and distributed ledger technology is going to eliminate a lot of that.
Well,
In some cases, eliminate most of it.
what you're doing with your school, I mean, this is so important, because this is where we're headed. This is our world,
Right.
and
Right.
and and we need to be a part of it. We need to understand how it works and be a part of the whole evolvement and
Right.
development of it. And
Right.
that's what I'm getting that your school is working to do. Um, um, there are a lot of teachers out here. You know, they closed 50 schools here in
Mhm.
Chicago, and there are a lot of retired teachers out here. And I'm always telling them, why don't you start a school? You know, why don't you start working with our children? Our children need
Right.
our help, you know. So, how can retired teachers, you know, become a part of this? What, how?
Yeah,
Because
I think
a lot of people just don't know where to start.
yeah, I think there's something going on right now post COVID. Um, the federal government and the states have been trying to figure out a way to get families and children back engaged um, into schools and into
Hmm.
organizations in the communities all across America, probably all across the world. Um, but I think a part of that is giving them a different type of education. You know, um, we have to change that whole paradigm. You
Hmm.
know, and so Doris and I were talking about this. We have enough people where we can begin to be creative,
Hmm.
and we get we kind of get held up on the issue with fighting over resources, which is
Yes.
which is a lot of resources out there. It's understandable
Hmm.
because billions of dollars is spent and billions of dollars are wasted every day.
Hmm.
We drive down the street and there's trash everywhere. You telling me with all the money that's circulating and going around paying people that the trash can't be picked up? You know that the buildings can't be fixed up. So we already know what that is. So I think in education, we need to get activated, and retired teachers can play a big part in this. Um, we can begin to create, like our idea with Genius Education and Innovation Center and the SOMETA Coding Academy is to be able to replicate, duplicate throughout, the country, throughout the world, so people can take these ideas, they can take these
Hmm.
tools. I have a couple of brothers that when we start doing these ongoing seminars and workshops, um, we're partnering with some of our brothers who work in technology every day. They're coders and
Hmm.
and and they're cybersecurity specialists. And so we can match these people up with the educators, and we can begin to put these centers everywhere.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
we can put these centers in churches and community organizations,
Absolutely.
um, and create schools. We don't have to wait around to see what the state and the city is going to do with the
That's
funding.
right.
You know what I mean?
That's
We
right.
can begin to be creative. This is another reason why many of us are getting involved with the digital asset in the blockchain space, because it's also a transfer of wealth taking place in that industry, and
Hmm.
so we can begin to finance, um, because it doesn't take a lot of money when you're doing it the right way. You know, I mean, I think Doris said the budget, the school district budget, just for the city of Chicago has reached 10 billion. I think she said
Hmm.
it was 6 billion. 10 years ago. Now it's reached 10 billion. That's a lot of money
Well, you
for
know, the public
for one.
schools have always. I worked as a speech pathologist for CPS for 35 years, and when I first came in, the mantra was, you know, public schools was a cash cow. They
Yeah.
had so much. There was an overabundance
Hmm.
of dollars in the public schools,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reason our previous mayor Daley got involved and did just what Harold Washington said not to do,
Hmm.
was let the mayor get his hands on that school budget.
Yeah.
And I watched over the years how many of our schools that had an overflow become receive less and less resources.
Yeah.
So, but it
Yeah.
comes to us starting to do what we need to do, and
Hmm.
that's what you're doing.
Right.
uh, and putting in the work. And I'm very happy and proud about what you're doing. And I think people definitely need to get involved and support and become a part of this. It's information that we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And
You
we
know.
can take, yeah, we can take those retired teachers who are
Mm-hmm.
interested,
Mm-hmm.
um, parents, and begin to put more focus, and even the schools. So the
Sure.
schools and the principals have their budgets, and we can work with them to bring this into the schools in terms of the coding academy, after school, because the schools are so inundated. We won't even get into all of that. They're so inundated with all kind of other stuff they want to teach.
Sure.
Okay, so that's a whole nother thing.
Yes, it is.
So here we are, we're talking about teaching and all these other debates going on,
Mm-hmm.
and the Chinese and Indian students have the technology world held hostage,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want to develop an app or a website to a great degree, it's taking place over there.
That's right.
It's being outsourced there. And so things that were created right here in America with the internet and at schools like the University of Illinois, um, these young people and students around the world have taken off with it, and so we're debating over teaching all kind of other things, where
Mm-hmm.
we should be focused on preparing them for the future.
That's
You
right.
know, but we can work with the principals and the teachers. There's actually when we do the cashless seminar presentation, we're going to talk about a blockchain summit where, we want to not only make that available to the general public, but also to teachers, where they can understand this information and they can share it. Because in 2023, and I know we're right up on the hour, but I'll just say this: in
Yeah.
2023, Denise, we're going to start seeing around March, the banks, they're already talking about it. The banks and the governments around the world are moving fast towards the digital world, and in the form of what they call CBDCs, central bank digital currencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to educate the people, because this is going to have a direct impact on all of us and how we live every day. And so we just
And
need
the
to,
current assets that people do have.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Because believe me, when this shift takes place, um, it's actually taken place in the midst of, and you saw this at the State of the Union. This is
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes. It's taken place in the midst of government default. It's not
Okay.
just the U.S. It's all of the global governments are at default.
Mm-hmm.
They're overburdened with debt,
Sure.
and the global economy is slowly about ready to just explode. And all of this will affect how we live every day. It'll affect our ability to run our cities and our schools. It gets very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so yeah,
Okay.
we're
Okay.
gonna we're gonna be this, all of this technology. I think when we grasp it, we can better handle what's coming in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
So how can people get involved? What do they need to do?
yeah, they can, you put it in the information. They can email us, email me, um, at info, and they can also, we're gonna start doing more with social media and putting out there what we're doing. That's something that we have to do that we haven't been doing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start doing more in social media, because we're actually on Facebook and Instagram, but we're not out there promoting it. But we'll start doing that,
Okay.
so that people can be aware. But they can email if they want more information. or they
And
can
give us that email again.
info at unlockthegenius.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Or even unlockthegenius.com, the website. You can go and you can put in a contact, and we can contact you. Those interested in the center, either through unlockthegenius.com or schoolofthemetaverse.com,
Okay.
the coding academy, they can go on to the to schoolofthemetaverse.com.
So
And
this is going to be an opportunity for children and adults.
adults, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the people we're working with in the technology field, they work more so with teenagers on up,
Okay.
But what we're doing at the center is going to be, for elementary children through high school, but we'll also assist those teenagers who are transitioning to the work world.
Okay.
And then the seminars and workshops that we'll be doing will be open to the public,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be definitely, they can come by, um, our location on 67th Street,
And what's
and
that
you
address?
gave that address. That's 619 East 67th Street, right in
Mm-hmm.
between the Salam Wellness Center and the Eat to Live restaurant. So we'll be
Okay.
right in between, in the middle, in between the two of those. Um, and so, again, as a part of our information on social media, we'll also be setting up, the banner and the flag so people can
Mm-hmm.
know we're there. So we're in the process of
Okay.
doing that, and we appreciate people like you, helping us with
Absolutely.
that,
Anything that
make
we
that
can
known.
do to help you out, I'm actually interested in
Yeah,
being a part of this, myself, because I think
yeah.
it's really important. Do you have some special? We are past the top of the hour, but I do want to ask you, do you have any special plans for Black History Month?
Yes. I'm going to next week. I have a presentation that I was just at a barbershop today, and the brother was asking me, when you going to do the presentation, because I've been
Hmm.
talking to him about the cashless. Um, so next week I'm going to do one on the cashless seminar, but I also have a presentation, and I don't even think I mentioned it to you, that I'm doing on the education of Malcolm X.
Wow.
And yeah, and so what that's all about is the approach to learning. What made him
Hmm.
like he was,
Hmm.
what made him like that, what allowed him um, to be who he was. When he came into the nation and started studying, you know, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Hmm.
So then we saw this. So that's another presentation. Um,
So now will your presentations be at the center or they'll be
yes,
on
ma'am.
Zoom? They'll be at the center?
Both,
Okay. And
both,
what are the
both at the
dates?
center.
Have you set the dates yet?
The cashless presentation will be next Thursday. I'll do these on Thursday, so we'll start next Thursday
Mm-hmm.
at 7:30,
Okay.
and both physically at the location and on Zoom. Um, and then the following week, that's where I'm going to do the presentation on the education of Malcolm X. So that would be um, tomorrow's the 9th, so the 23rd. The 23rd will be the Thursday. The 23rd will be the education of Malcolm X, 7:30 there at the center. Next week would be the 16th. That's where we'll do the one of the first one, because we're going to continue doing that on cashless.
Okay.
Dealing with the coming digital asset um, age.
Okay. That's
Okay.
wonderful. I
Yeah.
mean, this is so powerful,
Yes, ma'am.
and this is so much needed. And like I said, we're going to give you as much support as we can. We're pushing and supporting our bookstores, and
Right.
and you're right in line with that. That's what we need to be doing. It's get it up here.
Right, right, right.
Get it
And
up
I
here.
didn't,
So,
and I meant to give you, I'm going to give you, because I did a book on Bitcoin so people can
okay,
understand about Bitcoin, 30
okay.
Minutes to Bitcoin Mastery. So that's a book I'll send for you. I'll give you and Doris, um, and I'll make them, available when we do the cashless presentation. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's a,
I'm one of those people that have a Bitcoin, and I don't know how to
yeah.
get into I don't know about, I forgot the password.
Yeah, so that's all stuff that we're going to talk about
Uh-huh.
because that's what's happening right now. We're transitioning to where all of those digital assets for those who, which is most, who can't really keep up with that,
Mm-hmm.
how to maintain the wallet and the keys and all of that. Well, and starting this year in 2023, you'll start seeing the banks and the large financial institutions, they're already getting approval to custody all of that. So you'll be able to go to Fidelity and all of these places and invest in digital
And in the
assets,
Bitcoin.
crypto. Exactly. And they'll
Wow.
custody it. Yeah. So all of that's happening now. All of that, all of
Okay.
the banks have already been given the approval to custody, and so all of that's happening like as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This has been very interesting conversation or dialogue that I've had with you tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us the name of the school and the information, the contact information one more time before you leave.
So the name of the school is Genius Education and Innovation Center. And we also have the School of the Metaverse, which is SoMeta STEM and Coding Academy, which is mainly online, but we use the platform there at the Genius Center. And we're physically located on the south side at 619 East 67th Street, in the same building with the Salam Wellness Center, kind of in between the Wellness Center and the Eat to Live restaurant. So in Woodlawn. So we want to build that area up, and we want to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be growing and moving to some other areas. I do some things with BBF, used to be Better Boys Foundation, is now Building Brighter Futures on the
Mm-hmm.
west side. So we did a STEM program there last semester. We'll be doing some things this semester as well. So you can also find us there, um,
Okay.
and that's located at 1512 South Pulaski Road. Uh,
Okay. It's on the
yeah, that's
west side.
BBF. Yeah, on the west side, North
Mm-hmm.
Lawndale. Beautiful facility. Pamela Blackman is the CEO there. So we're gonna I'm trying to get the brothers who are in the tech field, and we're gonna get some things moving. We want to redo the lab out at help BBF redo the lab out there, um, because the Genius Center we've been operating out there, like I said, since last semester, and then we're gonna be, getting the equipment that we need for the Woodlawn, the South Side location, so we can do what we need to do with the young people, and so people can come and once we start, sharing, and everybody can come on a weekly or bi-weekly basis with the
Mm-hmm.
seminars, we'll be able to get build this relationship with the community, and so that we can start to, because there are other people around the city who are doing some things in STEM, but we just need to
Sure.
increase that. We
Absolutely.
need to pull it together so that we can make that, because there's too many young people out in the streets, and they're not going to be able to go into. We can easily equip them with coding and robotics
Mhm.
and blockchain and cybersecurity skills, where they can go out after high school and make a good living and have a good career. And so
Absolutely.
that's the focus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much
All right.
for
Thank
what
you.
you're doing, and thank you so much for coming. Um, and we are looking forward to hearing more about the school and what you're doing, and definitely letting more people know about it.
Absolutely. And we'll start being more active in social media and getting out there and pushing the information. So thank you again, and thank everyone for staying with us and listening in.
Okay. All right. And thank
All
you,
right.
family, for coming. We're on the move. We supporting Black businesses, doing what we need to be doing to sustain our communities. So thank you again, and everyone have a good night.
All right. Good.